Okay, welcome. Before we call the meeting to order, we have Director Designee Robin Woolery and myself will be kind of running the business end of this meeting. Thank you everyone for joining us. This is a hybrid meeting. We have people from the commission and the public both here in person and joining us via WebEx. So just to let everybody know kind of procedurally how the meeting will go. As you know from the agenda, at the end, there's an opportunity for public comment. There will also be an opportunity for public comment prior to any of the discussion items on which the commissioners are likely to take action before a vote is taken. I will make sure that anyone who wants to put forth public comment prior to the vote has that opportunity. The way to let me know that you would like to do that, if you are here in person, it would be to fill out a witness slip, which is in the back, and pass it forward or raise your hand. And we'll make sure that you get a chance to make that public comment prior to a vote. If you are here via WebEx, the way to let me know that you would like to offer public comment prior to the end of the meeting would be in the chat feature. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Deputy Director Woolery to call the meeting to order.
All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's great to see you guys. And happy that we are able to get together here in Chicago Lab for our second quarter meeting. Our next quarter meeting will be back at University of Illinois, Champaign, Urbana, but it is really nice to change things up a little bit. Sorry for those of you who couldn't find hotels, very well last night. Apparently the city is a little crowded, but thankful that we're able to be here for this meeting. We'll get ready to call the meeting to order, and we'll start off with a roll call.
Thank you. And thank you too, on behalf of myself and the whole commission, to everyone here at the lab who provided the support and the help in getting this all set up for today, the facilities and the tech and the refreshments and everything. We very much appreciate it. With that, we'll go that call. Director Kelly, I believe, is not present. Deputy Director Robin Woolery. Vice Chairperson Claire Dragovich. Here. Present via WebEx. I am here. And now I'll call down the remaining commission members. Dr. Arukumar.
Present.
Ms. Baker.
Present.
Mr. Buford.
Present.
Ms. Drummond. She reached out to me. She is hoping to join late via WebEx, but she may not be able to. Mr. Hamlin.
Here.
Judge Hill.
Present.
Ms. Hughes.
Present.
Dr. Hughes.
Present.
Ms. Ryhill.
Present.
Ms. Tucker.
Present.
And Ms. Ward. I'm not showing Ms. Ward present right now, although I do think she will be joining us shortly. I'll start next with who I'm seeing on the screen joining us virtually. I will call out names, and then if I miss someone, they can speak up. So I see Lindsay Simpson. The Injustice Watch is someone who's here in person. Gina Havlick, Jennifer Bash, Peter St. Andre, and actually I see two Injustice Watches. If there's someone else from Injustice Watch, could you please state your name?
My name is Mitra Marbash.
Okay, thank you. And now individuals who are present in person could please identify themselves.
Timothy Ruppel, King County Forensic Laboratory.
Sarah Ware, King County Forensic Laboratory.
Amanda Shanbaum, Illinois State Police Forensic Science Center, Chicago.
Teresa Bogart, Illinois State Police Forensic Science Center, Chicago.
Megan Neff, Illinois State Police Forensic Science Center at Chicago. Theo Gutierrez, Illinois State Police Training and Applications Laboratory. Maya DeClassifer from Justice Watch.
Okay, great. I think we've got everybody. So roll call, we do have confirmation of quorum. So there. The next item on the agenda is Executive Director Summary. So I'm going to take a minute to share my screen.
Review of minutes.
Oh, sorry, review of the minutes. You're right. I can't read. Commission members should have received draft minutes from the March 12th, 2025 meeting. Does anyone have any comments or proposed changes to those minutes? Okay, hearing none, does anyone want to make a motion with respect to those minutes?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as printed.
Second that.
Okay, commission members, is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed or abstaining? Okay, hearing none, that motion passes. Those will be posted. Next is Executive Director summary. If you stand by for a moment, I will share my screen. Great. Okay, so first we're going to start with legislative and legal update since the last meeting. As you know, we were tracking a number of pieces of legislation. I will highlight just a few. The first was Senate Bill 1889, which dealt with the recommendation that the commission made for amendments to the DUI statute related to the definition of Delta 9. That, unfortunately, that piece of legislation died in committee. The next one that I'm highlighting is, it actually was present in two bills, and that was the proposed changes to the commission's statute. There we go. That added language to the commission's enabling statute, stating that beginning January 1st of 2026, the governor shall designate the chair of the commission for a 2-year term. So how it did not survive all the way through the end of House Bill 2586. It did, however, make it through as Senate Bill 1764 as part of that. The current status is that it has passed both houses and now is presumably just awaiting signature. So if that is signed into law, then starting January 1st of next year, the governor will appoint a new chairperson every 2 years, and we'll figure out how we put forth the recommendation based on the previous meetings that we've had related to that. Anyone have any questions on either of those two? Okay, so remember I created a way to track legislation in the commission's shared space. Thank you to everyone who populated information as you got it throughout the session. I have updated it with as best I could tell, how each bill that we were tracking, how it ended up at the end of the session. I've highlighted the two that I've mentioned. You can access that if you want to take a look, but basically most of the legislation we were tracking in some way died in committee. Which I think is pretty standard for a legislative session. I noted that Tripp entered the meeting just via WebEx. I also just wanted to bring attention to a piece of federal legislation that was reintroduced. It's called the Carla Walker Act. It's been floating around for a few years. It was reintroduced in the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House on May 22nd and May 23rd. This is legislation that would provide funding, establish 2 pilot projects to support FIG, Forensic Investigative Genetic Genealogy. One chunk of $5 million would be, I think, earmarked basically for testing. And then the other would be for equipment for government agencies looking to bring it in-house. So I've just provided some resources, some web resources as a good way to track it. That was the most recent information I could find on it. But it was reintroduced, which is a good thing. I think Otham's website indicated that it has had bipartisan support in the past, but who knows what will happen with any budget items. Next, I'm just tracking 2 cases, not of huge importance, but there was a case out of the First District Appellate Court where the Illinois Supreme Court did grant the petition for leave to appeal. It's not within the context of forensic evidence. I believe it's with eyewitness identification testimony, but the issue presented is whether reviewing courts may rely on scientific studies or journals referenced for the first time on appeal. Usually you're limited on appeal to what was of record in the trial court below. This does tend to happen in my experience with appeals related to forensic evidence, that sometimes parties try to rely on things that were not presented below. So I'm just going to keep an eye on that because that could impact cases related to forensic science. The second is People versus McCoy. The PLA was also allowed. This is a third stage post-conviction case. A claim of actual innocence. I don't think the serology testimony is directly at issue. The main issue seems to be a procedural one. However, the serology testimony, this is an older conviction. And there's some issue, I think, as to whether or not new testimony related to serology would possibly impact the trial. So it is possible that a discussion of serology will make its way into that opinion. So I'm going to keep an eye on that just in case. And then finally, we have something that at least just came to my attention yesterday. It went out from various organizations, and Ms. Woolery can certainly probably speak to it and we can discuss it. Is that we received word that the current proposed budget for the Paul Coverdell grant funds, which I've been told the state, all 4 lab systems, state police, DuPage Lab, NERCL, and the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office all receive some type of funding from this grant program. That right now it is proposed in the budget to cut that to $10 million. It previously was at $34 million per fiscal year. And I believe some organizations were advocating for 50 million. So ASCLD put out, I think, some notifications. I saw it via Facebook. The CFSO has a flash brief out. I put the website there for anyone who's interested. It includes, it kind of does a summary of right now what is going on. And it has a chart that I thought might be useful to some people that goes through a number of grants. And again, this is just a snapshot in time. This is as of yesterday, so who knows where we're at today. But it shows you right there where the previous funding for at least the last 2 years was 34 million and proposed is 10. So I wanted to bring it up and maybe have some brief discussions on it. I don't think it requires any action on the commission's part, but within my job description as executive director, I can obviously work with agencies, talk to agencies, in ways that further the commission's work. I would think that having fully funded labs in Illinois, or the potential, devastating impact of the loss of these funds, should they be cut and should that impact your ability to get grants, would impact the services that you provide. So I wanted to bring it up. And again, just since it's new off the top of my head, I thought about reaching out to the NAFSB to see if maybe other commissions, if we want to try to form a coalition that would, if any type of statement is issued, kind of, get more people together, or maybe some are already thinking about doing a statement and we could join on. I figured I would reach out to the 4 lab systems, and maybe if you're able to give me specifics about how much, about the grants you get, what you've used it for, that information would probably be helpful. And we could try to, if you want, have a voice in, hopefully maybe letting people know that this is not a good cut.
I would agree. We're looking at cuts across the board throughout law enforcement. A number, speaking for ISP, a number of our grants are being cut, not just in forensics, but also in investigation, just basically across the board. So Coverdell would probably be one of our first that we've been hearing about. We've been notified that a number of our grants will be cut. And I think probably a majority of the labs live on the grant funding. So we'll have to all pivot if most of our meals are cut. There's going to be some lean years. So I think we need to speak out as much as we can. And I know that the CSFO is asking laboratories to reach out to their congresspeople, legislators, let them know, how these cuts will impact our laboratories. So just putting it out there, I think it would be smart if, perhaps a recommendation, you know, one way or the other, whatever, however the commission feels, but perhaps a recommendation would maybe go, I would say a long way, but I don't know if it's gonna go a long way, but, you know, maybe would make some impact. If we don't try, then there's nothing that we can say that we did to try to, you know, stop this.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree. And just to speak specifically about the Paul Coverdale grant, to give some background to anybody who may not be familiar with it, is it provides funds for improvements in forensic and medical examiners' offices, and to help with reduction of backlog. A large majority of that grant is set aside for the opioid response. So although there's grants that are specific for DNA, the Paul Coverdale grant kind of helps with the other disciplines within the laboratory, so like drug chemistry and things like that. So to lose the funding, as they're suggesting might happen, would have an effect on the laboratory's ability to acquire new technologies and be able to meet the demands, especially with the opioid epidemic.
And just when the number of the opioid, yeah, at least for us, the number of opioid deaths showed a decline, we're having to deal with cuts, and we use it for toxicology testing, so.
All right, well then, I'll reach out to whoever I can and figure out.
I think looking at the starting board, the forensic board, and perhaps seeing what other commissions are doing, maybe that might be.
Yes. I think so. I think so. And then if the individual labs, if at your convenience, if you have data or information, if you just want to shoot me an email about how much you get, what, and feel free to go back a few years too, because I think if you can show over time how it enables you to modernize or address, you know, emerging problems like the opioid epidemic. Anyway, I figure the more data, the better. So even if it's just putting it together as a fact sheet, that I could put together a fact sheet that then we could send out as to here's what this money pays for. And this is what then will be available or will have to be funded from other sources.
I like the idea of working with the Forensic Science Board, but I'd like also for Illinois, the commission to come up with something to write to our local representatives for just Illinois. And as a board to say, this is what we use in Illinois, this is why it's important.
Okay.
And to also try to join the national.
Okay. So how about maybe a fact sheet?
Mhm.
A fact sheet with a cover letter might work. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
And then obviously, you know, if other ideas come up as we're interacting with people, I can certainly act on those. So if you come up with other ideas, just reach out to me. And I'll do whatever I can and then share with you what I put together, and I'll try to act on this very quickly. And if there's, yes, Judge.
Oh, no, go ahead, finish that thought.
If there's some action that would take us outside of the scope of my duties that I feel would require some type of vote, we do have the mechanism now in the bylaws to call a special meeting, which we could do via WebEx. So we just have to comply with open meetings. So if there is something, just be aware that if we do cross into that territory, this might be the first time. That's why we created that ability to have those special meetings. So if we do need to convene a special meeting via WebEx just to vote on something in particular, we can do that.
I'm guessing that in addition to us having the information, or you having the information as to what those grant funds have been used for, I'm assuming that if there are cuts, that there's going to be backlogs across the board in various labs, and what that impact will be on the criminal justice system for both sides, both for the prosecution and for the defense. So that's an additional factor that I think our legislators need to know.
Well, and also, I'm thinking that's a good point. If we do a fact sheet with cover letters, that fact sheet could also go out to States Attorneys Association, defense associations, to make them aware of it. To be, you know, police departments, we could think about that, like disseminating that to as
Right.
many stakeholders as possible, so that then they could decide if they want to have, express anything via elected officials or anybody else, that might not be a bad idea. If it's coming from throughout the criminal justice system, not just the lab part,
Sure.
I would think it could be impactful. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, maybe the Medical Examiner and Coroners Association too, we could send it, maybe Chris, Dr. Hughes and Dr. Rukamar could forward it on to them, so, okay.
Yeah, I like the idea of reaching out to all of our stakeholders since
Yes.
we're a representative body. Sending that out and just asking people if they're for it, if they would, contact. Nobody has to, they might not support it, and if they think, that it's a good idea to cut them, I mean, whatever, but we could certainly send it out, and anybody that sends out support, that would be a plus for us. I know for ISP, we use the Coverdale grants we get every year, usually for instrumentation in the various. So that would just be another cut that we would have to then utilize general revenue in order to get instrumentation or just not get new instruments in certain districts.
Okay.
Yep.
So maybe, I know that each lab has their own systems as far as already in place to notify your customers or end users. Perhaps once I commit or I create the content from the commission, perhaps the fastest and best way to forward that on would be through the labs. Would that work? Like if for you to send it out as an informational thing, are you able to do that?
Let me think about our mechanism.
Okay.
If going through the laboratory would be better, or just getting a listing of user agencies and then sending it through the commission.
Okay. Because, yeah, the commission doesn't currently have, well, as I'll explain later, we do now have a legacy email address, but I don't have a contact list of any users. So either way, either if it can go out through via the labs, or if you're able to provide me with contact info, then I could do that. Either way. Yeah, either way. Great.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. So that was the bummer news of yesterday. Okay, moving on to education and outreach. The National Association of Forensic Science Boards has scheduled their annual meeting. It will be in October, the 21st and 22nd, and it's going to be at the University of New Haven, which is in Connecticut. I don't have details yet. I kind of did a general search of where do you fly to if you're trying to go to University of New Haven. There doesn't seem to be a lot of good options other than New York. So as I get more information, I'll let you know. Also, they have started they're gonna now, they're an evolving group as well. So they've decided to make membership annual. Ms. Ward has joined us for the record. Welcome. We have to possibly pass that. Yep, Ms. Ward, thank you. So if you are already a member, you are probably going to be getting an email saying renew as of July 1st. If you have not been a member, then if you join now or after July 1st, it'll be good for a year. I think it's $100 to join. I may have access to some funds for reimbursement, possibly, we'll see. So reach out to me if that's something, if you're not able to do it through, if you want to do it, you're not able to do it through your agency, let me know and I might be able to help. There was the FIU online Global Forensic Science Symposium that was just a few weeks ago. I think I had sent a link out for anyone who wanted to watch that. It was a 3-day symposium. Some of the content was way over my head. Some was interesting. I think they are going to make it available on demand. So if they do and I get those links, I will forward those on. And then in July, coming up, I have the RTI International / NIST Harnessing Artificial Intelligence for Forensics Symposium. This is going to be July 8th through 9th in Washington. I'm going to be going in person, which is great. I've been invited to participate in a panel discussion on high stakes decision-making and court acceptance, kind of along the lines of what Judge Hill brought up at the technology subcommittee meeting. It seems like our focus is going to be largely based on who's on the panel with me, and we're working out our content right now. It's going to be very focused on, I think, considerations for laboratories and developers on downstream, like court implications and maybe things that they should think about that will happen downstream. If they think about them on the front end, perhaps they can be addressed early. or taken into consideration both when developing AI technologies and and deciding how to, or if to apply them in different ways within forensics. So it should be interesting. It's going to be a very full 2 days. I'm very excited to go. So I will report back at the next meeting and obviously share any materials that I get. And it will be available online. I forgot that. That's the most important part. If you want to attend online, it is free. So all you have to do is you can Google, or I put the link up. You register online, and I think most of it, it looked like even the breakout sessions might be available online too. So I thought it was just going to be the lectures. I think.
If you register online, I ask you which breakout sessions you'd like to be a part of.
So it sounds like you might even be able to engage in the breakout sessions. So anyone who's free those days and is able to do it, I've attended, in my old job, I was able to attend a similar NIST event in DC, of forensic science thought leaders. And I found it was really well run. It was I really felt like it was very focused. It was very outcome driven. And I think we left with a lot of good takeaways. So it's worthwhile if you're able to do it, and pass the link on to anyone who might be interested. I think that, general. So we have some web page updates that have been made and some that are in progress. So the research link to the Florida International University Resource Library is up. So that's great. You guys voted on that at a previous meeting. Also, we created a legacy, what I'm calling a legacy email address. So it is a general email address for the Forensic Science Commission. It is up on our website. That way the public has a mechanism, or anyone, to contact the Forensic Science Commission. I monitor the email, and obviously then it's legacy such that any future executive directors would be able to have that email account and do work related, continue that on. So that is up and ready to go. I haven't gotten an email at it yet, so feel free to I sent myself one just to make sure it worked. And then also we've been working on the portion of the page that's about the Illinois Forensic Science Commission. So this is not exactly what it's going to look like. This was the kind of mock-up I created to give to the PIO to let them know what I was envisioning. So it's got the legacy email address at the top, and then it's got a portion for commission composition. And then when you link on each of those, it will show your bios and photos. So if you haven't sent me those yet, please do. And then the second section is information about the commission, kind of just like a little blurb, and then hyperlinks to the commission's enabling statute, as well as the governor's task force report on forensic science, which is what recommended the creation of the commission. So that's currently where we're at. The PIO and web people have quite a backup, but we've been in the queue for over a month, so they're going to get to us. ISP updated their whole web platform, I think. So yes, but we are, as soon as we're up in the queue, and this is just a little brief example of what your files will kind of look like. It'll scroll down. I think it's going to be similar to how ISP commands are. So people will click on it and they'll be able to scroll down and see all of your pictures and bios. OneNet annual training. I will be sending you an email in the next few days. Gave you a few months off, just to remind you, if you have some free time in the summer and want to avoid me emailing you at increasingly short intervals at the end of the year, you could get your OneNet annual training out of the way. If you are going to submit travel expenses for today's meeting, please do so by June 30th, because the fiscal year changes over on July 1. A heads up that at the next meeting in September, we will be discussing 2026 meeting dates. So I'll send out ideas. If anyone has any huge conflicts or major trips to Europe or something planned, please let me know. And then also at the end of this year, some of the people who were originally appointed to the commission, your terms are going to start to expire. So I have had conversations already with the director. We'll figure out the way, like how that works if you want to reapply for reappointment and what the time frame looks like for that. If you don't know when your date is and you want to know, let me know. But it's basically starting, Dr. Ruper, I think you're like the last one. You've got a few more years. It's starting in December, and it's kind of, it's a smattering because they were populating the commission early on,
Right.
in those few months. So between December and May, I would say, is when approximately the original people's terms will start to expire. Does anyone have any questions on any of those topics? I know it was a long something.
just echoing with, what Amy said about the, any reimbursements that you have. Those of you who don't work in state government, if you don't get your vouchers in by the end of the fiscal year, you then have to go through court of claim. And you could probably just decide that you work. Please make sure you get those in this week if possible.
Okay, so we will now move on to subcommittee reports. I'm gonna stop sharing because I don't have. Okay, so we start with quality systems. Ms. Dragovich, are you able to provide your summary from where you're at?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. Good morning, everyone. The Quality Subcommittee has continued its work to prepare the 2024 report of significant nonconformity. Since the March Commission meeting, the subcommittee has met 4 times. During those meetings, the subcommittee reviewed and discussed the responses by the DuPage County Forensic Science Center, ISP, and AFDL laboratories. A report was prepared, reviewed by the subcommittee, and recommended for submission and review by the commission. Of note, a publicly available investigative report was issued May 28, 2025, by a law firm hired by the University of Illinois, Chicago, regarding human testing conducted by the AFDL laboratory and allegations made against the lab. Upon review, the subcommittee agreed. Sorry, are we good?
Yeah, could you hang out 1 second? We're just having a little bit of a tech issue on our end. If you could just hang on 1 second, please.
You betcha.
Oh,
that's on.
that's okay.
Sounded good.
That sounds better. All right, go ahead. You could, if you could kind of just go back to when you started talking about the report that came out May 28th, please.
Okay. So on May 28th, 2025, a law firm hired by the University of Illinois, Chicago regarding human testing conducted by the AFDL lab and allegations made against the lab. Upon review and discussion, the subcommittee agreed the report has no bearings on the 2024 significant nonconformity report, as the responses that we were required to use were actually from the AFDL lab itself, which we did receive. However, upon discussion, it was agreed the content raises questions regarding operations at the lab, and so the subcommittee will be discussing those at future meetings.
And the non-conforming, the annual non-conformity report is a separate discussion and possible action item. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the quality systems report?
So at this point, we are just going to be reviewing the annual report that's been released, and then we'll vote on it next.
No, so the annual report from the commission, from the quality, about all the 5 labs is up for vote, at discussion and vote at this meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
The report from the law firm hired by the University of Illinois, Chicago was made public on May 28th, 2025, and based on the commission's last meeting, which kind of moved cracking the issue, the developing issue at AFDL to the Quality Systems Subcommittee. They're going to start reviewing that report and unpacking it. And I know that they spoke about bringing in subject matter experts,
Correct.
toxicologists, and the like to explain things in the report. Does that sound right, Mr. Beaver?
Yeah, that's correct. That's the subsequent action that Claire as a chair and we as a group agreed upon to move forward.
Any questions? Okay, the next subcommittee is training and career development. Ms. Tucker.
Morning, everyone. So the committee has met a few times and we've been working on creating the videos on the fundamental core forensic science disciplines. Completed is latent prints and drug chemistry. So the content portion has been completed and has been reviewed by the ISP Legal and the PIO office. We're waiting for, PIO is still working on the introductory videos. So it's going to be the introductory video, then the content video attached to it. So we're still waiting on those introductory videos to be created. Then once that is created, we can attach that to the content videos and send them out to the commission for review. They are lengthy videos. I think one was like 25 minutes, one was about just over 30 minutes. So we'll have to talk about reviewing those at some point. The next two sections that are currently working on their videos is firearms and toxicology, and then it will be DNA and trace after that. We're also working on creating stock images. PIO was also requesting them for the introductory video. So we're working with the 3 labs to get some stock images and videos from all the disciplines. At ISP, we have an intern in training and applications that is working with us to help get those videos and photographs over this summer. So if anyone has any ideas or things that they want to be included in our repository of images and videos, let me know.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody on this subcommittee and those that aren't members of the subcommittee, but that have been participating in these video projects. They've put in an immense amount of time and effort. And with the pilot videos, it was nice because we were able to work out some of the kinks, for lack of a better word, both on the review and tech side, but also making decisions about consistency and content on some things that I think will then benefit and streamline the remaining videos. And hopefully these will be a great resource when they're done. Almost done. And it's actually not bad timing either, because I think ISP is creating a microsite. I have no idea what that is, but I think it's instead right now, for example, the meetings videos that we have go onto ISP's YouTube channel. My understanding is once this microsite is created, that the training videos can be housed on the microsite, and then there will be a hyperlink on the commission's page for each discipline. So we probably would have had to move them anyway. So I guess we could look at it that way. So yes, I would expect definitely September, we should have the 2 done, and you'll have plenty of time to review them. I'll let you know when they're ready and you can go in at your leisure, but they're great. Yeah. Anybody? Okay, thank you. The next subcommittee is public policy. Mr. Hanlon.
Good morning, all. So we've met twice since the March meeting, and we focused on 3 topics, 3 more than that really, but 3 particular topics, 2 of which are going to be are on the agenda for discussion under Roman 6, I believe it is. And I'll just mention both of those briefly. The first is a statement that's been prepared to summarize the work that we did in 2022 regarding I don't know what I'm getting a lot of feedback here. Regarding non-use of victim DNA, that's going to be discussed, as I said, as a discussion item later. So 2 will be an agenda item relative to identification of emerging drugs in Illinois. This has been a fascinating learning area, and something very important from what I've gathered, and that too will be discussed, when we get to agenda item 6. The third area that we have been working on and discussing is per Chris Hughes and Pani Arunkumar. They've been working on the issue of funding or identification of unidentified human remains. And so if either, that is not on the agenda for, as we move along today. So if either Chris or Pani are available to fill us in on that, that'd be great.
Sure. So we've been meeting, Pani and I have been meeting regularly with representatives of the board of directors of the Illinois Coroners and Medical Examiners Association, Commander Jason Moran at the Cook County Sheriff's Office, Pani representing the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, and then Division of Criminal Investigation represented by Phil Trumpeter and a couple of other folks from ISP. And we've been really trying to understand what the limitations are in terms of fiscal support for our coroners and medical examiners when dealing with unidentified human remains investigations that are non-criminal, because that's outside of the mandate of the Illinois State Police Forensic Science Labs. And so we're at a point now where we have kind of a summary of the hurdles and have some descriptions of kind of how that could be approached in our state. And all the leadership of those different entities are basically taking it back to like the larger board of directors or up the chain at ISP at DCI to discuss it and say, is this something that we would be interested in looking for some legislative support on? So there's no like firm idea of how that's going to move forward, but that's one approach we're considering taking. So there's nothing formal yet. It's just still in the discussion phase of ideas.
Great, thank you. Mr. Hanlon, anything else?
No, we meet again in early July and look forward to that. That's it.
Great. Does anyone have any questions or comments on public policy? No. Okay, then we'll move on to technology. Mr. Buford.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Since our last meeting, the Technology Subcommittee has had the opportunity to meet twice, once in April and once last month in May. We're still discussing the topic of AI and forensic applications. So we have in the subcommittee all the major forensic disciplines participating in these discussions. In April, we had, I would dare say, one of the most interesting and exciting meetings we had. It was our largest audience meeting we had. We had NIST experts, Dr. Henry Swafford and Melissa Taylor from NIST, to give us a very interesting presentation, which gave us an oversight, an overview, a general overview of applications and processes regarding AI and forensics applications. They gave us a general overview first, then they gave a few examples of how it's applied, and based on their experience, they were giving some guidance of process considerations of implementing this for different forensic science disciplines. In our May meeting, the subcommittee had a debriefing of that information that we received from NIST, and we discussed more specifically how would this information apply to the specific forensic disciplines. We ended up honing in on 5 different areas that NIST presented to us and had, I feel, a candid discussion regarding evidence analysis, interpretation, case management, communications, research and training, and quality assurance as areas in forensic applications that could be further looked into. We all generally agreed that it would be good to have the subject matter experts, Dr. Swafford and Taylor, back with us to give a subsequent presentation, which would be more specific to different forensic disciplines if they have examples of how this is applied. So moving forward, looking forward in the future, we'll be inviting them back to give a similar presentation, but this time it'll be more specific related to the forensic disciplines and how this AI applications could be implemented in different applications. Where we're honing in on, for the most part, in general, is the different categories that we looked at and have discussed, whether it's analytical processes or more administrative processes. And right now, what we're seeing effectively is administrative processes, meaning report writing or various other administrative applications, is where a lot of AI applications could be honed in and looked at right now. Most of the other applications on the analytical end really is for some vendors that we've dealt with, in general, has been used as a marketing tool, which those particular technologies have already existed, but now the application of AI is being tagged to it to enhance the flavor of that particular technology. We'll continue with this discussion, but right now we want to focus and hone in on if AI is to be applied, what areas will be most effective, and right now we're honing in on the areas I've previously discussed. I do have one update before I close out. moving backwards towards our emerging technologies, we do have progress. We had a phase 1 and phase 2 discussion of emerging technologies. In our phase 2 discussions, the forensic subject matter experts from the different core disciplines gave presentations of emerging technologies that they saw fit that could enhance operations. Illinois State Police toxicology section at that time presented a overview and a review of a technology, LCMS, quadruple time of flight, or QTOF technologies that could be enhanced, that could enhance their workflows. ISP has moved forward to purchase that particular technology. So I want to give an update that what started out of the foundational discussion has been implemented at ISP now through the works of ISP management. They have acquired LCMS, QTOF, and that will be moving forward part of their workflow of a revised workflow for the Illinois State Police. That's what I have for now.
Great. Anyone have any questions or comments?
I'd be interested, when you guys have that next AI presentation.
Absolutely.
To ask, Swafford if he's aware of any laboratories that are actually using AI in applied, analytical work. I've heard so many, in the last 2 years, I've heard so many talk on AI and getting us ready and prepared, which is great, and the analytical functions, like you said. And obviously, there are some machine learning
Correct.
analytics that are out there that some of the different disciplines are utilizing, but I haven't heard anybody yet. And I mean, maybe there are some disciplines that have already started using some
Correct.
AI, but I'd like to see or hear about something actually applied. Because I haven't heard, and maybe we're not there yet. I mean, research wise, once again, they talked about it, but I still haven't seen anything yet.
Correct.
So I'm just wondering if we've gotten there at this point.
I think the next meeting, when they will present to us specifics instead of a general overview, that will be able to hone in on that topic for sure.
And I'm planning, so they're obviously involved in the upcoming symposium. So I will see them there, and I haven't reached out to them because I know they're busy with that, but I'll work on seeing if they're available to do it. And if they're not, then we'll find other subject matter experts that can talk. I know NIST is, as a federal agency, is also under under some constraints right now. So, but hopefully we'll be able to get some more information. It really was a great talk that they provided.
It was.
I think we had almost 40 people attend. That's a new record.
Yes. It was.
So you set a record.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Anything else for technology? Okay, finally, we have FIG, Forensic Investigative Genetic Genealogy. Dr. Hughes.
Great, yeah, sure. So we have met one time in late March since the last quarterly commission meeting. And in that time, we had Wendy McLean, who's the lead genetic genealogist at University of North Texas Center for Human Identification, speak. And she really addressed kind of what it, talking about the educational requirements, the difference between, because there's a lot of different kinds of genealogists out there, highlighting that, and then kind of what the workflow looks like for them at University of North Texas. And at this point, we're transitioning in our group from kind of hearing from subject matter experts to our next meeting, which is planned for July 17th, for us to kind of come back together amongst our subcommittee members to think about the takeaways from those prior talks, because we did hear from people all the way from like the genetic analysts and public forensics labs to genealogists working at nonprofits, thinking, okay, what do we as a subcommittee within the scope of our mission and this commission want to do next? And so Amy's been working on kind of a summary for that, and then we'll have that ready for the discussion at our forthcoming meeting.
Great. Anyone have any questions or comments for FIG? Okay, I will just remind everybody, so now that you kind of have an update on what all the subcommittees are working on and will be working on at least for the next quarter. Commission members, you're always welcome to jump in on any subcommittee meetings if you're interested in the topic, or you can change your membership or add memberships to any subcommittees at any given based on where you think you could be most useful. So if you'd like to join an additional subcommittee or swap around, feel free. We can do that. Just reach out to me and let me know.
think that Director Kelly has gone.
Oh, Director Kelly has joined. Welcome, Director.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I'm not there. I had to speak at the Juvenile Officers Training Conference this morning in Peoria. So just finished that up, but glad to be listening and didn't want to interrupt, but I know you mentioned AI and maybe you already mentioned this conversation about AI, but ISP has finalized our artificial intelligence policy and our use parameters. So we have some restrictions on how AI can be used in any law enforcement capacity or really anything we do within the Illinois State Police. That would include our forensics persons. Really just emphasizing the importance of having a human check and balance on everything we do with AI. But just sharing that, maybe you've already discussed it, but thank you for acknowledging I'm on the phone. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us.
Is that policy publicly available?
Is Director, Dr. Hughes has asked if that policy is publicly available.
Absolutely. Yep, sure is.
I'll find out where it is and I'll let you know. Okay. Okay, great. Add it to my checklist here. Okay, so then we're going to move on to part 6 of the meeting, issues for discussion. And the first topic is discussion and possible action on the Quality Systems Subcommittee Annual Report on significant nonconformities for 2024. Ms. Dragovich, do you want to start on that or do you want me to?
Just want to open the floor and see, does anyone have any questions or comments about the report the subcommittee tendered to the commission?
Any questions or comments on the draft report completed by the subcommittee? I'm not hearing any. Did you have anything else? I know you addressed it during the quality subcommittee update. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, just that as Amy already stated, anyone from the commission is welcome to join our meetings at any time. And so if you want to come to the next one, we'd love to see you.
Yes, so this is the first time that this subcommittee historically has basically their primary task has been to compile this annual report. So this will be the first time that this subcommittee is working on a project different than that. So now that the annual report is done, they'll be moving on to reviewing that publicly available document. Okay, so since this is a voting item, I am going to just confirm if there is anyone from the public. I'll start with online. Anyone from the public who wishes to offer comment on this discussion and action item of the annual report of nonconformities for 2024, please indicate in the chat or raise your hand. I'm seeing none, and so I'll open it up. I have not received any witness slips from people who are present in person, but I'll just open it up. Is there anyone present in person from the public who would like to offer public comment before the commission takes this item to a vote? Seeing none, it is now, we can entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the annual report to the Illinois Forensic Science Commission on significant nonconformities for 2024.
Okay, motion by Ms. Tucker.
I second the vote. Second.
Second by Ms. Woolery. For this, we're going to do a roll call vote. Ms. Woolery, are you going to vote, or Director, do you want to vote, or do you want Director Designee to vote?
Director Designee, it's fine to vote. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Then I will go through Deputy Director Woolery.
I vote in support of the annual report.
Okay. Ms. Dragovich.
Yes.
Dr. Arun Kumar. Yes. Ms. Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Buford.
Yes.
Ms. Drummond is not present. Mr. Hanlon,
Yes.
Judge Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Hughes,
Yes.
Dr. Hughes,
Yes.
Ms. Rydell,
Yes.
Ms. Tucker,
Yes.
and Ms. Ward.
Yes.
Did I miss any? Okay. All right, so we have a unanimous vote minus one person who is not present. So that report is adopted. It will be posted on the commission's website. It usually, for substantive documents like this, usually takes, I'd say, roughly a week. It shouldn't take longer, but that will be put up on the website. Okay, the second discussion item was discussion and possible action on the fundamentals of forensic science training videos, drug chemistry, and latent prints. As you may have guessed already from the subcommittee report, I did put this on the agenda as a placeholder because there was a time when we thought they might be ready in time for you to review prior to this meeting. So I wanted to just make sure it was there on the agenda and covered. However, as we mentioned, they are not ready. We're just working on that intro video, which again, the nice thing is once that is done, it won't have to be done again. It'll just be tacked onto the subsequent video. So does anyone have any comments or discussion on related to the training videos?
Can I just say, just kudos to the forensic scientists who have worked on this on top of their day job. It's a huge undertaking, and I'm really impressed with the work that they've done.
Thank you. As am I. It really is. I mean, it has been a heavy lift, and we really appreciate it. Hopefully, as I've always said, hopefully in the end, it will save you time because it will be available for prosecutors and defense attorneys to review prior to, your first pretrial prep, and you won't have to educate them on the basics, or it'll be available to students. It'll be available to the public. So it's just a great service and resource. So we really do appreciate you. Thank you. Okay. So moving on to item number 3 is discussion and possible action on Public Policy Subcommittee recommended statement regarding the use of victim DNA in unrelated criminal investigations. Mr. Hanlon, if you're okay with it, I'll provide the background on this one.
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is nothing new. So this was, and I forget how it first came up, but somehow I got word of someone within the DNA community who was inquiring as to where they could find on our website the work that the commission had done it started in 2022, which is when the commission started.
Yep.
In early days related to the use of victim DNA. And because it was early days of the commission and because you didn't yet have the website infrastructure and everything in place, all the work that you did, while it's outlined in minutes and things like that, there was no kind of formalized document memorializing the work that you did. So we put together in the Public Policy Subcommittee, everybody agreed that it would be a good idea to create one. So it's kind of more of a historical document that they're proposing, that you have a draft of. It's just a statement. It basically, and it makes it clear, it summarizes the work, your 2022 legislative recommendation, which went out via letters that were sent on behalf of the commission to the majority and minority leadership in the Illinois legislature. Those are appended to the proposed statement. So, and then it just basically provides background. It outlines the legislative recommendation as it was worded in the letters. And then just so that any readers are aware, it goes ahead and just addresses the legislation that subsequently did pass and took effect on January 1st of 2025, which amended the Rights of Crime Victims and Witnesses Act. So that way, anybody who's looking this up will see not only the work that you did, but they'll see the legislation that ultimately, was passed. And then there's just a statement saying that these amendments are consistent with the position that you took back in 2022. So this is proposed as a resource document. Does anyone have any questions or discussion? Yes, Ms. Ward.
Just by way of discussion, I really appreciate that this in the Public Policy Committee and the consideration of the commission doing this. I think it solidifies the position that we took on this back in 22. It validates the legislation that passed, and I think it shows our continued commitment to recognizing that victim DNA that was taken for the purpose of a crime reported by the victim should not and cannot be used for other purposes for unrelated crimes. And so I think it's a very consistent through line for the commission. I think it's very supportive of victims. And I really appreciate that it's something, on behalf of survivors, that this is something that the commission should be doing, is committed to doing. So thank you. Thank you. I'd be happy to make the recommendation when we get to that.
So you want to make the motion? So no, that's
I'll hold on to that till you're right.
And for those on the meeting who weren't attending meetings in 2022, what part of what the commission did was make sure that there were no laboratories that were doing this in Illinois, and there weren't. But part of the impetus for your action at the time was you wanted to make sure that there weren't going, possibly in the future, this couldn't happen. So I think memorializing this and having it as a resource on the commission's website just further solidifies that. And as far as I know, this should be the last historical document that we have to go back and do. So we should be caught up now, I think. So since this is going to be a voting item, I'm first going to open it up to the public. If anyone from the public wishes to offer comment before the commission takes a vote on this document. First, I'll go with WebEx again. If you would like to offer comment, please indicate in the chat or by raising your hand. Seeing none, I'll open it up to the room. I have not received any witness slips. Is there anyone here in person who wishes to offer comment? All right, seeing none, we will entertain a motion.
I'd be happy to make that motion.
Okay, Ms. Ward moves to adopt the statement.
Second.
Dr. Runkumar, second.
Dragovich, second.
Okay, Dragovich, third. Again, since this is a, you're welcome. Since again, this is a statement, and since it will be published on the website, we're going to go through a roll call vote. So as we did before, so a yes vote is supportive of the statement. So Deputy Director Woolery.
Yes.
Ms. Dragovich.
Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
Runkumar. Ms. Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Buford.
Yes.
Ms. Drummond is not present. Mr. Hanlon.
Yes.
Judge Hill.
Yes.
Ms. Hughes.
Yes.
Ms. Hughes.
Yes.
Dr. Hughes. Yes.
Close.
It's a good thing you have the doctor in front of you. Ms. Ryhill.
Yes.
Ms. Tucker.
Yes.
Ms. Ward.
Yes.
Okay. That passes. That motion passes. That will be published on the website. Thank
Very
you so
good.
much. And then the final topic is discussion and possible action on public policy subcommittee recommendations related to the reporting of emerging drugs in Illinois. And for this one, because I was told there'd be no science in law school, I'm going to punt it to, and how did that work out for me? I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Baker to kind of give an overview of what the subcommittee's been working on.
Sure. Thanks, Amy. During public policy subcommittee meetings, we continue to discuss what happens when a laboratory identifies an emerging drug and sees drug casework and must evaluate that compound as being a controlled substance by a chemical class, if not listed by name in the Illinois Controlled Substances Act. At present, each laboratory performs their own assessment, although informal discussions may occur amongst laboratories such as the Northeastern Illinois Regional Crime Laboratory, DuPage County Forensic Science Center, and ISP. There is no formal forum or mechanism in place for uniform classification of an emerging drug or novel drug compound. The subcommittee heard from forensic scientist technical leader Jennifer Watson. She is from the Miami Valley Regional Crime Laboratory in Dayton, Ohio. She provided an overview of how the state of Ohio created an emerging drug scientific working group, in part as a response to Ohio's pharmacophore model of controlling compounds, which requires an assessment as to whether a compound fits the model or not, which is somewhat similar to Illinois' controlling compounds by chemical class. The EDSWG invites participation from all public forensic chemistry and toxicology labs, of which there are several in the state of Ohio, including multiple state agencies, county agencies, and regional labs. As a subcommittee, we recognize the benefits of a formalized group within Illinois, with the primary benefit being uniform reporting amongst all laboratories. Representatives from all three labs, NERCL, DuPage, and ISP, have indicated they're in favor of a formalized process. Therefore, the subcommittee continues to discuss what the best mechanism is to create a similar group to Ohio and where to house such a group, if not part of the charge or scope of the Illinois Forensic Science Commission. So this brief update is basically to inform you what we've been discussing and also invite anybody who's not part of the Public Policy Subcommittee to attend our next meeting on July 10th.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have a quick question. So are you guys thinking, I like the idea. Are you guys thinking of doing, breaking this out to a separate subcommittee, or would this remain housed in public policy?
I think we are discussing, not to step on your toes, Amy,
Please.
but Amy has some concerns that it may not fall within the charge or scope of the Forensic Science Commission.
Okay.
So we're discussing that
Taking that.
fact and then determining where would be the best place to house a group such as this.
Yeah, so it's, I think everybody agrees, seems to be in agreement that it's a good idea. The nice thing about Illinois compared to Ohio is that we currently only have 3 lab systems that are analyzing these drugs. Ohio has a lot of laboratories. So, it doesn't, so I don't even, I mean, the level of formalization or, you know, what would need to go into it to make it work in Illinois and make it last, I think is something that we're looking at. We kind of talked about possibly today, kind of getting a consensus from the commission as far as like letting the 3 labs start talking to each other and kind of more than a little more formal than current informal discussions, kind of solidify, almost like the
Working
working group.
for LIMS,
For LIMS,
for
suggest.
technology.
So that's, yeah, so that was a recommendation that the 3 labs start working together on LIMS.
Right.
Not within the commission, right? Go forth and work on LIMS and figure out how you can help each other. So I think it was kind of something similar for step 1 would be they could start on that and then in the meantime to open up discussions as to thoughts of where it could be housed. My issues is I don't see where it fits within the commission statute as far as a permanent group. I also feel like since the purpose of it would be, they'd be sharing information about active cases. And so there's that whole issue with open meetings. It's not really the type of thing
Correct.
it's not really the appropriate venue for that.
Correct.
I'd also have concerns about, you know, let's say the 3 labs agreed to, and I'm gonna probably mess this up, correct me if I say it wrong, they agree that a particular compound is controlled under the Controlled Substance Act, that if that came from an entity within the commission, it might be interpreted by the legal community as the commission says this is a controlled substance. And it's still important that within any particular trial, that the state has to prove that the substance at issue is controlled and the defense has to have the opportunity to disagree with that or challenge that if that's an issue in the case. So I had some little concerns that could make things a little confusing for the legal community. So, Dr. Rukumar?
And just to add with the
Oh, yes.
communication between the labs, if there is a mechanism where in the hospital community or like the medical examiner coroner community can provide some input, like, you know, we saw, like, we would see xylazine, when there were these cases that, where people were dying and it was only heroin being used, we noticed that it was fentanyl, but, we didn't test it within our tox lab. We don't have a tox lab right now. So we're sending it out and they're able to figure that there's xylazine, or right now there's this new medetomidine, I'm sure I'm messing up that name. But if there is a mechanism, we could say, because we're in the state, we don't test here, but we would get the results on our postmortem samples, and that may help, like in the jail community, we didn't find anything, even with our regular outsourced lab. So we had to send a research lab to find some unique synthetic cannabinoid that was there. So we could, if there is that mechanism, just to, maybe they have an email or something where hospital or public health, the medical examiner, your coroner community can just, send, we saw this.
That's right. That was another possible benefit of creating such a group. The primary impetus may have been uniform reporting, but for example, Ohio's group, correct me if I'm wrong, they're housed within a larger group that also involves public health officials and law enforcement. And that wouldn't necessarily have to happen here, but the idea of setting up some type of two-way communication between the drug chemists, the coroners and medical examiners, public health officials, and law enforcement about emerging drugs, wherever they're popping up first, whether they're popping up in autopsies, they're popping up in hospitals, they're popping up in the lab, they're popping up on drug busts, might better inform everyone as to what, for example, Dr. Rukamar might request a different panel, correct? Like a different tax panel, if you know that there's an increase of this novel substance. So that's another possible kind of broader benefit of a group like this. Judge?
Sure. So what exactly is the ask of the commission today? What is it that we're asked to vote on or consider today? Or is this just a discussion item, giving us a heads up that this is an issue and down the line there may be some recommendation? I'm just not sure if there's an ask today.
So we weren't really 100% sure. We wanted to leave it open in case people wanted to share ideas as to whether, but we wanted to make sure it was on the agenda as an ask. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that kind of that step one, if there's an ask, it would be that step one, which is basically a recommendation. The commission make a recommendation that the 3 lab systems work together to create a group and start that process similar to the working for LIMS. So that recommendation, and obviously participation would be voluntary. So make the recommendation that the labs volunteer, that it's available, they voluntarily participate, and then the subcommittee will continue to work on exploring the topic of how it could be kind of finalized and housed and made a little bit more official with the input of the people who are starting aging in it.
Correct.
What's,
Go ahead.
what are some of the pros of keeping in the commission? Like, one that I'm thinking of is like the medical's office is already represented. So like she's going to be part of that group. Whereas if we do a smaller group with the 3 laboratories.
So, and can I piggyback off that? So I think that based on the discussion that I'm hearing, first off, it sounds like a great idea to at a minimum have the 3 labs talking to each other, but it makes so much more sense to include the ME's office, the hospitals, wherever the information might come that would sort of highlight some brand new drug that's coming up or something like that. So it certainly sounds like at a minimum, the 3 labs talking together makes a whole lot of sense. That's a great idea. But to widen the net, to include the ME's office, the hospitals, et cetera, seems like an even better idea. And maybe the labs starting together to brainstorm that process is a great starting point. But it seems like ultimately the ME's office, the hospitals have to be brought into the fold there. And by the way, I agree with the concerns that you have, Amy, about the Open Meetings Act, pending cases, that kind of stuff. So that is and maybe a drawback to having it in the commission format, but that wouldn't stop the 3 labs from contacting Dr. Rukamar and the hospitals and law enforcement to get that same information, just not under the commission's umbrella.
Right.
possible.
Yeah, and it's not like it's an avoidance meeting, it's just that it's not a really good fit for the
Correct.
type of work that they would be doing.
Correct. Right.
It's not really, and again, this is just my opinion, people can differ. It's not a good fit with the commission's scope. To have it running within the commission. It does fit within the scope to make a recommendation and, you know, and even guide in the process of creating, I'll call it like the small group that would be consulting with each other as to whether or not a particular compound is in fact controlled based on their expertise in drug chemistry. And then imagine that as maybe possibly, it sounds like what Judge Hill is saying, is that then that smaller group is part of the larger group that brings in the public health. And which is basically it's similar to Ohio's model.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with almost everything that everybody has said. I do share the same legal concerns. I mean, if one of the cases is a pending case and it's discussed in a forensic science commission, you know, that's not good for the state or the defense. You know, there are privacy, you know, the defendant has some rights that belong to him as well as the victim. So, but I do like the idea of, you know, I don't know if it's a recommendation for like a pilot program or exactly how we phrase it, but the 3 labs determine what is the best practice. You know, they know better than I would, or we would as a commission, that they determine kind of what the best practice is to include these new or emerging drugs. But that as a part of that, they have some sort of line of communication with the entities that need it, that need to be aware of it too. You know, coroner's office, law enforcement, et cetera. So maybe it's a 2-part recommendation. The one is to have developed some sort of group, working group or pilot program, however we want to phrase it, but that also as a part of that, be considering a line of communication to the other impacted parties. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect.
Right, it does. So we laid the foundation of a working group, just to give everyone, in the technology subcommittee, the topic of dealing with LIMS or the laboratory information systems across the state was a broad topic. The technology subcommittee had considered it at one point, but we deemed it to be more effective to have a working group break out from that and have their discussions would be a lot more effective. So the principle is the same for this. I would recommend that as a start, as a great foundation, because it adds flexibility of how this can grow without limiting us and be kind of capped because of the legal concerns or capped because of whether or not this is a good fit for the proper commission.
And then once the group, you know, let's say a small group, it's called a task force, the emerging drug task force, you know, maybe once they are stabilized and actually have an set idea, how they're going to communicate, when they're going to meet, what they're going to discuss, whatever, then they open it up larger for that working group and then include the coroner's office, so medical examiner, or public health, and then, you know, invite them or open it up when need be, because I mean, you're not going to waste people's time if we're just discussing, you know, the chemistry of compound. You know, there will be some times when the medical examiner's office, you know, might need to weigh in on something, but open those lines of communication. But that's certainly something that can be done separate from the commission. I really like that idea, starting some type of working group like that. I mean, I think that's easy enough to get done, and talking about just housing it, all the labs are in the northern part of, you know, located in the northern part of the state, or have labs in the northern part of the state, for ISP, you know, maybe even you all don't circulate laboratories if you're looking for a meeting place or something like that, but I think it's easy enough to accomplish.
I would suggest maybe, I mean, I think we're all in agreement that this is a good idea and this is something we want to do, but I also echo your concerns. It's hard for me to vote on something when we don't know exactly what it is. So maybe if the committee could put together a sentence or two for our next meeting of what their recommendation would be based on our discussion today. And then that's something, I mean, I'm okay voting on something today too, if we have a sentence or two, but it's hard to formulate everybody's ideas into that sentence or two to actually say, this is what I'm voting on. If we just want to leave it as, yeah, I'm voting on a recommendation to accomplish that, what we've said, I'm okay with that too. I'm just throwing both of those thoughts out there.
I think that's a good idea, and I think the subcommittee can continue to flesh out the logistics of location or whatever, but in the meantime, it sounds like the labs could go ahead and start. I don't think the commission has to give them, like, has to say, go forth and do this. It sounds like they're in agreement that they'll do it, they'll voluntarily do it. So then they could report to the subcommittee and maybe work together to figure out if a specific recommendation for formalizing it.
Well, and I don't want to delay either. If this was I mean, I'm okay saying, yes, we're in favor of a recommendation on doing this.
I think, I hear what you're saying and I don't want to delay either because I feel like there's timely things, there's new drugs all the time. So I don't remember exactly how the working group got formed. But I would probably just step out and say, you know, we can have a recommendation to form a working group with a representative from each laboratory to start discussing the mechanisms and purpose and objectives and so forth of a group moving forward. At least do that today.
Yeah, I think, is that specific enough of a?
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah.
Okay. So let's see, you just said it. Before, since this is something that's gonna be voted on, and I think this can be a consensus vote, that doesn't need to be a roll call vote, but since it is a voting item, I'm first gonna open it up. Is there anyone from the public who would like to offer comment on this topic before the commission considers voting? First, if you're online, please indicate in the chat or raise your hand. I'm seeing none. I've received no witness slips on this topic. Is there anyone in person who would like to offer comment on this topic? Yes, Mr. Rubel.
I would like King County Forensic Laboratory to be included in that as the fourth laboratory that is testing drugs in the northern part of Illinois right now.
Okay, well, I wasn't aware that. Okay. Does anyone?
I think that would probably have to go back to the public policy subcommittee if it's altering.
Delay in any vote.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we could,
we can be picked up later after the commission has got it.
okay, so we could, if you wanted to tighten the recommendation, it could be, have you gotten ISO 17025 accreditation yet?
We're still working on that.
Okay, so I guess you could tighten it that way would be a suggestion that that the commission, I think if I track what you said, that the commission make a recommendation that the ISO 17025 accredited laboratories in Illinois for seized drugs form a working group on the topic of uniform reporting of emerging drugs. Emerging drugs. Does that make sense to the scientists, the lawyers? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there any other public comment? Okay, so then, Ms. Baker, do you want to make that motion?
I make that motion.
I do for a second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, that motion passes. All right, that brings us to the end of our discussion items. Next on the agenda is housekeeping items. Does anyone have any housekeeping items?
Don't forget, our next meeting is in September. I don't have a date. But it's at the University of Illinois, Champaign.
September 10th, I believe, Wednesday, September 10th. No other housekeeping items? Okay, at this time, we open it up for general public comment on any topic whatsoever. So I'll start to give people online time to raise their hand or put something in the chat. I'll start with people in the room. Is there anyone in the room present at the meeting that would like to offer public comment on any topic? Don't all jump at once. Okay. Seeing none, we have no public comment offered in the in-person meeting. Is there anyone online who would like to offer public comment? If so, please raise your hand or indicate in the chat. Okay, I am seeing none. So we have no public comment. The final item I was already covered, so the next meeting is Wednesday, September 10th, at the U of I in Urbana. That will be posted, as usual on the website, about a week or so prior to the meeting. And then we just need a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Jill, motion to adjourn, second?
Terry Ward.
Everybody, we had like 5 motions, 5 seconds. In favor?
Aye.
Great, so
Aye.
this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. Always lovely to see you. Thank you to all the members of the public who joined us. We appreciate it. We'll see you in a few months.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.